Greetings in the best of salutation. There will be prayer, power, peace, patience, prosperity, that which encompass and embody praise, which is in a form act. I was listening to a good brother doing a presentation, Brother Marcus and Kofa Nix, on a gathering was called Marching Forward in the midst of a pandemic toward healing was the gathering, but his presentation was history through healing. And I thought about trying to, as I was listening to what he was saying, I think that there could be a follow-up because we hear the word a lot about trauma. And there's a term called post-traumatic growth that was, he shared that as it pertains to another brother who's a doctor now, Brother Dennis Winkler. And I think that we need to continue to move from the victim to victorious and make that paradigm shift. I think that maybe there need to be a theme called post-traumatic results. The impact, the growth, the development, the maturity, and the completion. Now, I had a concern about the word completion in association with civility, because I realized that one's aim is accountability. Because when you do not have accountability, there is a lack of accountability. It makes you to become a very irresponsible person. And it leads to what is called moral cultural decline, recidivism. One does not want to accept and deal with the consequences of his or her actions as it pertains to the choices that he or she makes and the options that are before an individual. And there is alternative options, alternative reasons, alternative emotions, and alternative decisions, so that it leads to also not only being analytical person, but being a critical thinker. I think there is a great concern there. But when it comes to post-traumatic results, because you have to have a cause in order to produce effect. Yes, so I says about truth. Truth is the cause that impacts and affects, the results of one's reality. So we have to deal with the reality. When we deal with the reality of a thing, I realized that, and that we don't deal with the reality, is it happens to do with emotional reasoning. And in the psychology field, it is associated with categories of distorted automatic thoughts. That which is distorted, something that is not clear, and it becomes like on automatic pilot, the thoughts. Every thought begins with a seed. It makes no difference where the seed comes from, long as the ground is fertile. As a result, we are here on this plane of existence. I believe it was Buddha who says all that we possess is a result of thought. Be careful of what you give power over you, or that which you give power over you to rule. Thought, Dejahuti, the way of words. Be aware that our inner conversations that we're having with ourselves more than likely create our circumstances. And circumstances makes us other than ourselves, because I realize we're born in a condition, placed in a situation, surrounded by circumstances. But emotional reasoning, it means we let our feelings guide our interpretation of reality. I feel depressed, therefore, one may say if he or she is married that his marriage is not working out. That's emotional reason, because that which we think is so ain't so. And it becomes about perception. Perception is not reality, but is on its way to reality. You look at a tree, maybe 5, 6 years from now, the tree gonna turn into leaves, and the leaves then also could become logs. Yes. Emotional reasoning. I know that we all want to find a place of belonging. But we look for a world outside of ourselves that could project an illusion, rather than looking for the world that's inside of us and that happens to deal with the principle of self-acceptance. Also, there's 2 things that I want to just add to post-traumatic results. I think that we have to deal with, a dislocation. Being dislocated, when you dislocate your arm, it's out of place. And that is it's an injury, so you have to let it heal and try to put it back in place and then let it heal. That's being disjointed. There's also something when it comes to in relationships, when it comes to you go to a counselor and or a marriage counselor, and they say as you make your vows, and they say whatever differences you have, are they reconcilable? Reconciling our differences, first you must become a friend again to yourself before you become a friend to anyone else. But there's 2 terms that I want to deal with when it comes to post-traumatic results. Deal with the impact, the growth. When you grow, then you're developing, you are evolving. And when you evolve, you become mature. And when you become mature, Does that make you complete or mature? Really, I want to use the word mature in your civility. That's it. That's it. Mature in your civility. And I think that when a person is mature in his or her civility, they are at peace. They are at peace. And it's the balance. But yes, the word legacy is what someone leaves behind them for, leaves behind them after they are gone. Something they leave behind them after they are gone. Something left behind for an individual or a group after that they are gone. When I think about that, I think about in this wise of how when it comes to post-traumatic results, the impact, the growth, development, maturity, and civility, is that in making the transition from victim to victorious, is that if you are unable to express yourself or share your experience, someone will do that for you. And I know far too many times, let's just say in maybe certain families, that they don't like to talk about certain experiences, That means that the trauma that they have, or the experience that they had is so traumatic that they suffer in silence. Silence is a precursor toward rage, and rage is a precursor toward violence. So that means that people suffer in silence. And if you know something about a thing, and even your body, it's not designed for you to harbor or hold anything in, where there's an enter and an exit. And some people do find ways to deal with traumatic experiences that further compounds it, through any form of addiction or what have you. That's just my experience. I'm no psychologist, nor I am a sociologist. But this is what has been the legacy that that some folks can leave behind after they're gone. So that needs to change. But you see what I just did there when I said I'm not, because I didn't go to school for these things, and that could also fall under unfair comparisons. Maybe I interpret events in terms of standards that are unrealistic. For example, you focus primarily on others who do better than you, and find yourself inferior in comparison. When it comes to post-traumatic results, the effect, the impact, the growth, the development, the maturity, and the civility of it. Yet, it can work in several ways. It can be, the results could be uncivil. The growth could be, there could be a underdevelopment of the last two of one's civility and one's maturity, which means one become immature. Yes. A legacy is that which can represent a leg to stand on, but what supports the leg. There are some maybe hereditary things that, based upon one's family tree, and if one know about it, they can be able to deal with it. A bird, you can tell the psychological makeup possibly of maybe of a person. I don't know. I'm just using it. How early he or she, meets or deal with a crisis. This is called preventive measures. And is this the legacy that one has left behind? Not to share their story and make people aware of what's going on in their family tree and their family history? Or is there enough time to do so? But history is our cultural time frame. I believe Dr. Clark alluded to that. But then there is another term called heritage. Legacy and heritage. As you receive that as came down from you from the past. You see, there is some similarities, but yet there is some slight difference. So let's look at the legacy. So when you are talking about legacy, we're talking about thinking about the person it used to belong to. Belonging. What belongs to you? What has been given to you is life. Some would say in the Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But yet, even though these people were self-indulgent men, what has been given to you? But you're talking about that person. You are admiring that person, you are revering that person, or does it become personality worship? Post-traumatic results. Is that what you are talking about? Is it helping to release you and free you from the traumatic experiences? Or is it reinforcing or re-traumatizing you? And you're talking about re-traumatizing, you're talking about the person, while at the same time you are re-traumatizing yourself. It's like even when we talk about history, are we re-traumatizing ourselves when we talk about the past? Possibly so. You look at a life in which one probably had lived 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, personally, and you're talking about that, all you're doing is re-traumatizing yourself, because that's over and done with. So we must move forward from that. And maybe it seems as though that an individual can be stuck on that because he or she may not realize that his or her future is ahead of him or her. The future is bright. Yes. So when you talk about heritage focuses instead on the person who's inheriting it, focusing on what you have inherited, and it is a reflection. It is a reflection. So we see what has been passed down is a legacy. And in that legacy, I would hope, when it comes to post-traumatic results, the results of it, the impact of the results, the growth of the results, the development of the results, the maturity of the results, and the civility of the results. And when you have civility, when you come into complete civility, you should be at peace. And I ain't talking about the peace when you are physically here no more. But I like this term called peace in a biblical sense. The peace that surpasses all understanding, meaning that you don't have a retaliatory spirit. That differences can be reconciled with yourself first. And be the example that others will follow. I share this in closing about dialectical therapy. Acceptance and change. Acceptance. Mindfulness. Being aware of the present moment without judgment. Which means there is no judgment focus. You don't view yourself and others and events in terms of evaluation, good or bad, superior or inferior, rather than simply describing, accepting, and understanding. You are continually measuring yourself and others according to arbitrary standards and finding that you and others fall short. You are focused on the judgment of others as well as your own judgments of yourself. I didn't perform well, or I take up something else. I won't do well. Look how successful he or she is. I am not successful. Enjoy the moment. In any negative situation, you can find the positive. Look at a piece of carpet. Just the color of it if you have it. Just look at the texture of your skin. Look at something about you and enjoy that moment. Acceptance, principle of self-deceptiveness. I think Dr. King gave a presentation about 3 dimensions of complete life, how one can do math faster than he, and he had to realize he had to accept his tools. Principle of self-acceptance. And like I said, it's unfair comparison. We live in a society where social comparison is just becoming very extreme. He's stronger than me, he's smarter than me, he's bigger than me. And not to mention the biological specifications of men and women. It's very challenging. And then the next one of acceptance, distress tolerance, managing a crisis without worsening the situation, accepting reality as it is. Change. I realize that change is a product of human effort, and human effort must be synthesized unto a useful purpose. For me, this result in readdressing social diversity, moving from a persecuted minority to a privileged majority. That's just my thinking. Change, emotional regulation. understanding and reducing vulnerability to emotions, changing emotions. If you see someone in a vulnerable situation, it does not require for you to take advantage of that particular person. Just want to get out of the habit when it comes to post-traumatic results, the impact, the growth, the development. We don't want to continue to re-traumatize ourselves and allow it to take root, to develop. And when it becomes fully mature, it's hard for you to distinguish what is civil and what is uncivil. When it comes to appropriate thinking, appropriate actions, appropriate thoughts, appropriate feelings, appropriate behavior, and appropriate attitude. The next one is interpersonal effectiveness. I've come to realize that we really have to tighten up on our interaction and personal skills. Getting needs met, maintaining relationships. And this is a problem with what psychologists say narcissists, it's like, there is not a sustaining connection with one with another. Just get what I need from you and move forward. I think it was a definition of a host or someone is just sucking the life out of you, like a leech sucking the blood. So in relationship, and increasing self-respect in the relationship. So we want to increase self-respect rather than decrease self-respect. And we are really challenged and addicted to a point where that our skills, our interpersonal skills and interaction skills are decreasing. When it comes to human relations, the way we connect in human relationships, the actual connection itself with self. Until next time, talk to you.